Months in self-isolation with a 5-year-old boy, it changes you. Hi everyone, it's Pat the Serial Gamer, and today we're gonna go into a brand new territory for this show. We're gonna go into the third dimension. In 1996, the PlayStation was gaining some serious ground, the Nintendo 64 entered the ring, and the Sega Saturn was falling flat on its face. Mostly the first two consoles successfully brought platforming to 3D, and it was done on three fronts. The small team of Naughty Dog in California gave us Crash Bandicoot, which used a more direct approach to challenge and just had an excellent remake. Nintendo gave us Super Mario 64, which used a more mission-based angle and has actually aged pretty well. And in England, the small team of 6 people at Core Design gave us Tomb Raider. Yes, 6 people, these are the full credits. Well, add to that the voice actors, the composer, advertising, etc. I guess. Tomb Raider is more based on adventure and exploration, and looks more like a 3D evolution of the kinda realistic platformer that was around at the time, like Prince of Persia or Another World. They didn't know it yet, but they were building up what is called today the action-adventure. Tomb Raider was released as a temporary exclusive on the Sega Saturn, and then a few months later on PC and the PlayStation, which is the version I played. When they started designing the game, it was actually supposed to have 2 playable characters, a man and a woman. But it was too complex for now, and they remembered that dude who was running around in tombs with a whip, and it could cause them some legal issues later. So they only kept a female explorer named Laura Cruz. Idols then thought it would be easier for them and more popular in England if she was a British aristocrat, so she became Laura Croft. And some say that she became Laura because Idols thought that these poor Americans would not be able to pronounce Laura. But setting aside the fact that she's one of the first true female gaming icons, and despite what Square Enix wants to tell us, she has psychologically nothing to do with her, who is Lara Croft? She's an archaeologist, which means that she loves wandering around in ruins all over the world without considering their historic significance while destroying all the surrounding fauna to pick up a relic she will keep for her own personal glory. Her latest client to contact her right after she subdued Bigfoot is Jacqueline Natla, who's the head of a high-tech conglomerate, and she asks her to go and fetch the scion of Atlantis in the Peruvian mountains. Natla offers her a big pile of money, but Lara doesn't care about that. She only plays for sport. She's going there for fun. Look, some girls go to the gym to get fit and move around a bit, but her, she goes into some lost ruins in a mountain to kill dinosaurs. Or she's gonna do some climbing on lava. Ouch. Eventually, of course, she wants the scion for herself, and if she saves the world, well, that's just a happy accident. This version of Lara Croft, well, she just doesn't care. There's this time, she's searching for a hint about her next destination, so she infiltrates Natla's own personal office after destroying an elevator. And she just lays down on the couch reading a book just like home. Surveillance cameras, movement detector, what are these things? Much later she gets captured and she's stripped of all her weapons, and she decides to infiltrate an enemy yacht to follow them, and she hides by just laying straight on the bed. Lara, protect yourself, hide under the bed, do something that makes sense. Well, it works, so whatever. But before you do anything, after noticing that a few elements have certainly aged, what is the very first thing you should do when you play an old Tomb Raider game? You go to Lara's very own home to get used to the controls. Because if this tutorial was originally meant so that players could get used to the new style of game, today it's more there for you to keep in mind these archaic controls. If you think the graphics aged the game, you haven't controlled Lara yet. But eventually, you'll get used to it. And yes, this game has 10 controls like the first Resident Evils, but here the camera is almost always behind Lara, so it's not much of an issue actually. There are a few control configurations, but you're not out of the woods yet. Lara carries a lot of momentum when she runs, so be careful when you run beside a cliff or she'll just fall off. If you want to be more careful when you move, you need to walk. When you want to jump somewhere, you need to plan ahead in terms of squares of distance, because the game is pretty much grid-based. And almost all of that applies to all of the first 5 Tomb Raider games, by the way. So you always need to keep in mind that the platforming side of things is more based on exploration and puzzles. You need to take your time in this game. So after wandering around in part of Lara's home despite the mess, You really start the adventure in the mountains warmly dressed. Well, we'll see, it's a magic poncho, I guess. And sadly, the adventure begins in tragedy. Eventually, her globe-trotting treasure hunt will carry her to tombs in Greece, in Egypt, and in the mysterious Natla's mines. But on the way she'll come across two rivals, Larsen and his strange hands, and Pierre Dupont, the dirty litterbug. This guy will just get in your way in Greece once in a while. He shoots you for a bit and then he just turns around the corner and just disappears into an interdimensional rift. Or he just teleports away, why not? I know that earlier I kinda trashed the barrier of entry that are the controls, but now let's talk about what the game does well. Because those who made the game are not complete idiots. They know that despite her agility, Lara controls as if she was in a wheelchair, so they don't ask her to climb a mountain, if you know what I'm saying. The first true level is quite linear, with a little bit of climbing and some obstacles that come from far enough that we'll see them coming. Well, most of them. There are some medipack and ammunition secret stashes hidden away for those who want to look around a bit more. And when you find them, there's a small... Lara, of course, comes equipped with her trusted signature weapons, her pistols. Eventually, she can find stronger weapons like the shotgun, the magnum, and the Uzis that do have limited ammunition. It goes without saying that those Incan shotgun ammo and those ancient Greece magnum ammunition still work. You're so lucky, Lara. Speaking of weapons, those ruins and many caves are mostly inhabited by animals such as wolves, bats, gorillas, mummies, and exploding mummies, why not? Obviously, the simple way to take care of them is a good old way with your guns, and Lara will always automatically target the closest enemy. Hold the X button and she will keep shooting and targeting it, no matter what. Although sometimes she just doesn't feel like it. Seeing as most enemies won't shoot you, you can get out of range or just use the power of the frog and jump everywhere. Even the few human enemies you come across have terrible aim when you're far enough. So, as you might have guessed, the charm of the game doesn't lie in its combat, it's more in the levels themselves. When you get to explore caves or ancient temples where no one has set foot in centuries. Finding keys and levers to open doors and activate contraptions that still miraculously work, while dodging deadly obstacles like spikes, crumbling floors, and bugs. When you need to, you have to climb walls and make some perilous jumps, often in a methodic way. Lara has to push or pull some stone blocks that must weigh a ton by seemingly thrusting her fingers in them to open the way forward, and seriously, how does she do that? Some levels are more linear than others, and in some of them you need 3 or 4 MacGuffins to open a door, and they're often at the end of some challenge rooms. And what is surprising considering how small the team is how little repetition there is from one level to the next. The example I mentioned with the MacGuffins can most notably be linked to 2 levels, St. Francis Folly and Midas Palace. In the first one you need to find 4 keys in a room representing 4 mythological figures, Neptune, Thor, Atlas, and Damocles. It's only 4 deadly challenges, but they're very short. In Midas Palace, there are challenge rooms to get through, but the level itself is much bigger. There is one of the lead bars for which you need to go through many rooms by itself. You need to go through tons of hallways, be careful not to fall because it's the start of the level, and I certainly don't want to retrace those last 10 minutes. I need to climb again, and oh, it looks like we're getting somewhere at last. Let's go!
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
So yeah, as I said, take your time. But this level is actually followed up by the worst, the cistern. in which you need to find that key. Can you see it? It's there. Come on, it's right there. Now, of course, in this level you get to play around with water levels. And if you don't do it in the way the game wants you to, you can get to see some strange things. Like malfunctioning rats or flying alligators. Next level also toys around with water levels, but it gets much more fun after that. Even the 3 Egyptian levels are pretty much designed as if they were 3/3 of one giant levels, and in fact it was my favorite part of the entire game. On PC you can save anywhere, and just that makes it the best way to play the game. And it's true for the entire series, by the way. You want to play the first generation of Tomb Raider games? Do it on PC. But on PlayStation there are save crystals, and there's just enough of them actually. Pretty often there's one before and after a particularly hard challenge. If not, it's right at the moment when you're telling yourself, man, it's been a while since my last... hey, save point! There is a moment when you open a giant door and on the other side there is a midi-pack and a save crystal. I think the game is telling me to save my game before the upcoming swim. Also, graphics wise, you do see the items enough so that they're not lost in the texture. Well, most of the time. And generally speaking, seeing as you get to explore a lot of caves, temples and tombs, it's obvious that the entire palette of browns and greys has been used. But many of the rooms are often covered in colorful paintings and mosaics that effectively reflects the civilization represented. We sometimes get an ambient music playing that will add to the atmosphere of a few rooms, but 95% of the time, we are only surrounded by natural noises and Lara's footsteps, which add a lot to the feeling of being alone in the middle of nowhere, accompanied by lions, deadly traps, and some idiot who won't stop shooting at us. Go away, Dupont, you're annoying! It creates a great atmosphere even though sometimes the music just continues playing for way too long. Such an ambient and minimalistic soundtrack wasn't really something that was heard often at the time, and the composer Nathan McCree only had 4 weeks to write the entire soundtrack without knowing what the game would look like. It's also the true reason actually as to why the game has so little music. But if you think tight deadlines are the only problems the team had, I'll just tell you that Lara Croft's creator and main designer of the game, Toby Gard, wanted to keep an image of simply having a strong and independent woman for Lara Croft. And he fought as hard as he could to keep it that way. Why? His bosses at Core Design wanted to put more emphasis on the sex appeal of this pile of polygons, and they even wanted to input a code in the game to have Lara running around naked. What? Obviously it hasn't been done, but it should give you an idea of where Lara will go next. The 90s were weird, let me tell you. The first Tomb Raider still has its charm thanks to its level design, and I would recommend it to this specific group of people that think that Uncharted 1 or the first of the most recent Tomb Raider trilogy has too much of this and not enough of this. Or if you like the dungeons in Zelda Ocarina of Time, it's pretty much a dungeon pack, minus the items of course. If you're not sure about the graphics, the game has been remade in a way similar to Metroid Zero Mission in Tomb Raider Anniversary. It's a lot more accessible, but there are many differences and it will have its own video when I get around to it. Until then, I would ask the Tomb Raider fans, what is your favorite Tomb Raider series? Is it the original Core series, the Crystal Dynamics trilogy, or the Square Enix reboot? I'll see you for the 20th video with one of the greatest games of all time. Subscribe with the usual bell to not miss it, and I'll see you guys then.